Hey guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Emma and today I'm going to show you how I made this cardigan number 6 from my favourite things, knitwear. So I've had this cardigan in my favourites for a wee while now, and I did have some yarn already in my stash. It was this yarn here that I actually brought for another project. So I saw the ballerina pattern, which I'm pretty sure is a free pattern, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to make that ballerina top, and this yarn was like suitable for that top. But then I kind of changed my mind because I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to actually wear that top. It's not really my style, and also I don't know, I like this purple, but also like I don't know if I like wearing purple. So I decided not to make the ballerina top. So I had this yarn just sitting there, and I was actually on Ravelry one day and I was looking at that yarn type and projects that had been made with it, and I saw someone had actually made cardigan number 6 using 2 strands of that yarn, and they used up about the same quantity that I already had in my stash. So I was like, perfect, like that's going to use up all my yarn and I'm going to be super happy with that. So that's why I initially decided to make cardigan number 6. And, you know, I also love cardigans, so can't go wrong there. So the pattern calls for, it says a bulky weight yarn, but they specify to hold 3 strands of mohair together to give it like a light airy fabric. I obviously am not using 3 strands of mohair, I'm using a different yarn. But it is knit on with 6mm needles for the lace body kind of sections, and then the ribbons knit on 4.5mm needles. So the pattern comes in sizes extra small to extra large, so there's not like a huge size range available, but the cardigan itself is meant to be quite like an oversized piece. It's meant to be knit with around about 20 centimeters of positive ease, so there's quite a lot of leeway, I suppose, with sizes, but I do feel like it might be an easy one to adapt just by doing like a few more repeats. Now, when it comes to measuring out the gauge, because the gauge is, like it says, to knit it in a lace, but they don't give you the lace pattern, so you can't knit in advance to see if your yarn is suitable for the pattern. You have to buy the pattern first to get the lace. Anyways, it's kind of hard to know where you're measuring across the lace pattern and how to count your stitches to know if you're meeting gauge or not. I think mine was off by like possibly 1 stitch. I wasn't really too sure, but you know, it was close enough, near enough. So I went with the size medium for my piece. As for the construction, it is a cardigan, which means it will be knit flat, but the piece is knit top down in a lace pattern. The construction starts by knitting like a back panel. You then pick up some stitches along the shoulder seam and knit 2 front panels. You do some like increases to kind of shape that V-neck as you knit those. You then join all the pieces together and cast in a few additional stitches under the arm, and then you just continue to knit down until you're happy with the length of the piece in the lace. You then knit the button band separate from the cardigan. Now, there's a few comments on Ravelry around whether or not like knit the button band as you go or knit it separate and attach afterwards. I chose just to follow the pattern because I haven't done a cardigan or a button band or anything like that before, so I don't actually know what I'm doing, and I wanted to knit it like at the same time as the rest of the body. But yeah, you basically knit that separate, and then you attach the button band using like single crochet to seam it together. I assume you can just use whatever kind of seaming technique that you like, but you attach that, and then you start knitting the ribbing at the bottom of the body section, and you kind of incorporate the button band and the ribbing, the body section like together in that ribbing. After that, you then pick up stitches for the sleeves, and you knit the sleeves in the same lace pattern but in the round this time, and just again continue until you're happy with the length. Finish off with some ribbing and then bind off your piece. The last step would be to add buttons. Now, the buttonholes, it seems like a bit of a weird technique where you kind of just poke holes in your button band, you make it bigger and like seam the edges so the hole stays open. But you would do that and then attach your buttons to finish off the piece. So for this project, I'm going to be holding 2 strands of yarn together. The first one is Bench's this purple yarn, so it is the Abbey Road, the Wind Cries Merino blended yarn in the colour Purple Haze. It's 65% merino, 25% alpaca and 10% polyamide. Each ball is 25 grams and is 120 meters. Now I picked this one up from Spotlight on special, so I got 10 balls for $40, so each ball is $4. I actually got a total of 15 balls in the colour purple. So I'm going to be holding this together with a strand of grey mohair, which is just from Temu. It's a blend of 55% mohair, 25% silk wool, not really sure what that is, and 20% acrylic. And each ball of that is 50 grams and 400 meters, and that was a cost of $4.43. So initially I did a couple gauge swatches, and I was going to hold this purple yarn double, and so I had enough to do that because the other project notes that I saw, they had held theirs double and they used, I think, like 15 balls of yarn. I had 15 balls of yarn, but the fabric was coming out a little bit thicker than I intended. I really wanted like a nice light airy weight yarn, so I decided just to hold one strand of this with the mohair. The other tools I'll be using are 6mm circulars and 4.5mm circulars and or DPNs. And then I've also picked up these shell, like power shell buttons that I'm going to use for my piece. So there's no indication on skill level, however on Ravelry from like people who have made the piece, it's got a like kind of 1/3 rating kind of difficulty. So it's definitely on the easier side of things. But because it is a lace piece, you do need to know how to read charts in order to do this piece. And at first I found the charts to be like super confusing. Like I just struggled to kind of wrap my head around it because it depends like what side you're working on. Like the symbol is the same symbol, but the stitch type is different depending if you're right side, wrong side. And like it all does make sense, and I do appreciate that like on the bottom of the charts it does say like knit this X amount of times, so you've got a chart for each like size, and it kind of specifies how many repeats of that chart you need to do for each section. So I do appreciate it's like quite spelled out, but for me personally I did find it easier to actually like write out the instructions for each row of the chart, just to get a hang of it, because I was, like I say, when I flip my work I'm confused to whether I was doing like a knit or a purl. So by writing it out I just found it really much easier I should say. But once you get going and you've like done a chart or two, it's really easy to read your work and you don't really need to pay as much attention. You kind of know what you're doing based on what you're looking at. It becomes very, very simple very quickly. So because it's chart work, I definitely recommend like doing a gauge, because that allows you to actually practice your charts. For me, this is the first time that I was doing lace work and like things like yarn overs and whatnot. And at first I was mucking it up because I watched a tutorial on how to do a yarn over, and I assumed that you included a knit with the yarn over, and that was like the yarn over, when really the yarn over is just moving your yarn into a different position. So I was actually adding in more than one stitch and my pattern wasn't like aligning up, and it took me a little while to realize what I was doing wrong. So I definitely recommend doing your gauge to not only make sure that you are somewhat close to the gauge, but also it's just to get that a couple practices on that pattern, so that when you start your piece you kind of get the gist of what it's meant to look like and you don't muck it up and have to like repeat several rows or anything like that. You know what I mean? Now this video is by no means a tutorial on how to make cardigan number 6, but it's just more or less my journey on making this piece. If you do want to make the cardigan, I'll have the link down below if you want to purchase the pattern. Otherwise, if you do like these videos, consider doing the YouTube things, because I've got a few different projects on the fly at the moment and they will go into project vlogs. I also do kind of like a regular check-in. I call it monthly, but it's not necessarily monthly. check-ins on kind of like a real-time update on projects and what I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, do whatever's if you want to be notified when those are up. Otherwise, that's enough rambling for this intro. Let's get into making this cardigan number 6. Okay, so here's my tiny gauge swatch. I've blocked this piece and attempted to measure it against the pattern gauge, but because I don't know what part you're meant to be like measuring to accurately get a gauge, but I measured mine being like 1 stitch. What did I get? 1 stitch more than kind of what the pattern said, so I feel like close enough's near enough. I did end up doing this gauge swatch quite a few times because it took me a while to get the hang of this lace pattern because I haven't done lace work before, so gauge swatch proved helpful there to try and get the pattern right. You can see the side's a little bit messed up, but the side's looking, I think, pretty close to what it's meant to look like. I also played around with my fabric as well because initially I was going to use 2 strands of this purple yarn because I did see someone had left notes on their project where they had this exact same yarn in a different colorway, but same yarn, and they used 2 strands held together to knit their piece, and it seemed to work fine for them. So I was like, oh cool, I've got enough, I can do 2, but it was quite like a thick fabric when I knitted it with 2 together, so I've opted just to do 1 strand of the purple, 1 strand of the grey mohair, so that I get a little bit more of this kind of like airy see-through laissez fabric instead of like a thick jumper situation. So I'm going to rip this back because why waste yarn, and we'll get into it. I feel like this is going to be such a quick knit. Like, look how quickly this is unraveling. Oops, we've already encountered a problem. Oh yeah. See, this yarn is fluffy. The fluffs, maybe I shouldn't have unraveled this. The fluffs are all sticking together. Mind you, I have unraveled this like a few times. Like I said, I did this gauge swatch a couple times and this has been blocked. So maybe that's impacted the... Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out. Okay. Maybe that wasn't the bestest idea. Where's the scissors? Oh, I'm so excited to be working with like large needles for a change. Been doing my camisole number 4 whatever, and it's on small needles and I'm a little bit over it. So I'm hoping this knits up fast because we've got large needles. So this is the back and shoulder. This is the back piece, right? So you've got shoulder, neck, shoulder, and this is one like chart, or it's 1.5 charts actually, of the lace pattern. So that's what it's going to look like, and it just keeps repeating down. So this took me about, what, 2 hours to do this first section. Once you get the hang of it, it does get a lot easier. So not only do you get to start to read your work a little bit more, so you don't worry about like, oh, is this, 1 knit, 2 knits, 3 knits, whatever. It becomes a little bit easier to read what you're doing underneath, and you get a bit quicker at it. Okay, we have crappy lighting yet again. The weather was so nice yesterday and it's so crappy today. It's like day and night. All right, so this is the back piece finished. It's actually knitted up fairly quickly. I did this entire piece over the course of 3 days, but I spent about 11 hours all up knitting this. It looks kind of small, but it's definitely got a lot of stretch to this fabric. So I might have to look into ways to maybe reinforce the seam across the shoulders and neck just to stop it from stretching too much, because I fear like over time with wear we might get a bit too stretched out and it might kind of fall off the shoulders, but we'll see. We'll wait till the end to see how that comes out. The next step for this is to now do the shoulder. So we start with one side, we just got to cast on some stitches and then continue knitting the charts, and then you do the same on the other side. The cast on instructions kind of confused me a little bit because I'm trying to work out what side you're starting from. So this is the right side of my work, and we're going to work the right front as if the piece is wearing the piece. So this would be the right front here. And then it says to pick up stitches from the outermost part in. And then you do a setup row from the wrong side. And so you'd flip and work this first setup row based on the knit pattern. That's how you do it, because at first I was like, do you cast on and knit this establishment row at the same time somehow, or was it done separately? I was a bit confused, but yeah, so basically you've got to pick up stitches first and then knit a row on the wrong side and then keep going with the charts. I'm really liking how this fabric's turning out though. The colour's coming out quite nice. I think it looks quite nice. Doesn't look weird against my skin, and I'll always be wearing this with black, so it's never going to like clash with anything. And it's just, yeah, it's knitting out really nicely. The fabric feels really nice, really soft, very lightweight, but also warm. Even though it's got holes in it, it's going to be a very warm cardigan, I feel. So far, I'm so happy with how this is kind of coming out. The color's looking nice, the pattern's looking pretty nice, feels nice, it's lightweight. Anyways, let's attempt, in terms of how much yarn I've used up, almost one whole ball of the purple on this piece. So that was, I think these balls are 25 grams. So, you know, quite light. So now I have to attempt to cast on. You have to pick up stitches on this side, right? So now I'm confusing myself again. Alright, it's a bit late at night, so it's kind of dark, but I really want to continue on this piece because I'm feeling really motivated to keep going since it's knitting up so freaking quickly. We've now done the back piece and the two front panels, so now I'm up to joining this in, not in the round, sorry, but joining all these pieces together, and we'll just be adding a few extra stitches on under the arm here. To connect it all together. I already casted on some additional stitches. My stupid camera wasn't even recording. So let's connect this together. I just need to switch out my cables
because this is a good thing about this fabric, is I can just like bunch it up onto one needle. I have a feeling that I connected this twisted. Not sure. Looking a bit weird. It doesn't matter, I'll fix that when I come right around. But yeah, it's getting too dark, guys. I want to eat my dinner, so we will come back to this. I'm going to keep working on it tonight, but I'll show you where I'm up to tomorrow. So here's where we're now up to. So you can see I've added a few rounds or rows since adding on the extra stitches for the underarm piece. This is about halfway done, so we need to add like another this much onto the bottom, and then that technically would be the body piece completed. It's currently looking teensy tiny though, still. So like again, it does stretch, but I don't know if it's going to hold that stretch. Right now it looks really, really small, and I'm a little bit concerned that we're not going to get an oversized look from this. It's going to be a little bit more fitted. It's definitely going to fit regardless because of the stretch factor to this fabric, but I would like this fabric to remain stretched out, if you know what I mean. I don't know if it's going to do that, but it's otherwise knitting up very, very quickly. This body piece obviously is taking a little bit longer than the other pieces because it's much longer, like you've got to go all the way across. So it's now starting to like slow down in terms of progress, but nonetheless, like I did this whole section basically over the course of one day. I did spend quite a lot of time on it, but you know, just over the weekend day, sat there and knitted it. So she's pretty quick, and pretty impressive how quickly this is coming together. I'm liking it. It's keeping me motivated to continue to work on it just because I'm making such good progress on it every single time I pick it up. So yeah, I'll come back when we've got some more length on it. Here's how we're looking. So I just blocked this morning, and because the fabric is so light and airy, it took literally no time to dry. But I wanted to get an idea of the length on, because it was looking teensy tiny. This front piece here, you can still see it's all like scrunched up, but the back is looking a little bit more wider, particularly up here where it was like stretched on the coat hanger. So I'm pretty happy with the length. I've actually stopped 2 repeats short of where I should be, because it's still got another 5 centimeters for, or I don't know how long it is. I think it's around 5 centimeters for the bottom ribbing. So what I'm starting on now is the bottom band, which I actually just started. And it's basically just a 1x1 rib. And I believe you just knit this whole thing. And then, how do you do it? You go this way. So it's knitting from the center back. basically you've got to knit all this length, and then you pick up some stitches along this cast on edge, and then you knit the other side, and then you attach the band to the cardigan with crochet hook, which I'm going to have to teach myself how to do that because I have no idea. But this is, I think this is the neat side, so I think it attaches like that way. I just wanted to see what it looked like in terms of like thickness with my chosen button, because I thought this was looking like a little bit thin of a band, but putting it up against the button, I think it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to keep knitting this, and yeah, like I say, we just got to keep going until we get to the right length. I'm not sure how to exactly measure this because my measurements aren't aligning with the pattern, so it might just be kind of visually wing it, I think. Yeah, so you've got like one like lumpy edge, which is like the same as the cardigan. So I believe this is the edge it like they'll connect. And then this side's like the neater side, which will be like outward facing on your cardigan. I also forgot to mention I sized down my needles. So these are 4.5s. I'm just using DPNs because it's just easier than having them attached. I've just used blocking pins because I don't have any other pins available. But yeah, so neckband is done. I just kind of guesstimated on the length. It said that the neckband was meant to be shorter than the body. I don't know why, but I made mine a little bit shorter than the body. I actually knitted my neckband longer than what the pattern called for, even though I did 2 repeats less on the body. So I'm kind of confused with those measurements, but or it could just be like my yarn, I guess. But yeah, I've just kind of stretched out the neckband and pinned it in place. My pin's actually sliding out, and now we're just going to crochet it together. So I have to watch a tutorial to figure out how to crochet it together, and then once it's been crocheted, we move on to the bottom ribbing. So at the moment I still got my needles attached because I'm working with 2 balls of yarn. I didn't want to cut my yarn just in case I needed more length, but I think it's looking okay with this length. Because when I hang it up on a hanger as well, like the front seems to be a lot longer than like the back does. So I guess with having the shorter neckband, that prevents the front from being so long. I don't know. But anyways, let's do some Googling and work out how to crochet.
and the waves clasp one another. And the waves clasp one another.
There we are. So neckband is fully attached and first round of the ribbing is done. So now I just got to keep doing ribbing for another 5 centimeters. It's looking quite good. I'm really happy with how this neckband. This neckband came out perfectly fine. So for the buttonholes, I don't know if I'm actually going to create buttonholes because you don't do them as you knit it. You just literally poke a hole through your stitch and make it bigger and then kind of stitch around the edges to keep it open. Since I'll probably never wear this open, I always like my cardigans buttoned. I'll probably just stitch them on right through both sides, I think. But we'll do that last. Okay, time for a tally and bind off. I've already chopped off my yarn. Probably got way too long of a tail, but I'd rather have a little bit too much than not enough.
Waves clasp one another.
God, that was like 2 hours later. Actually, I think it was like an hour and a half it took me. So here's how we're looking. Am I inside out? Yes, I am. There we are. There's how we're looking. I think that looks really neat and tidy. I'm loving how that looks. Go away, needles, you're making noise. Yes, I'm loving how that looks. I get the Italian bind off now. So I did like in my sweater, I did an Italian bind off and it looked a bit like chunky. It was a 2x2 rib, so it was a little bit different to this, thicker fabric, everything like that. And I was like, oh God, it took so long and I don't know if it was worth the effort. But then I just recently also did a regular bind off on my camisole, and like there's definitely that obvious chain edge. And on this one, like I'm digging how neat and tidy this Italian bind off looks. Just makes the fabric just like finish. There's no obvious edging detail. It just finishes neat and tidy. And I'm freaking loving it, to be honest. I think I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Italian bind off. At first I was hating on it, but now I'm digging it. I think it looks nice. Also matches like this edge as well, because you see how you got like a rounded edge. It's just kind of all nice and rounded. Beautiful. Okay. Next we've got to pick up stitches for the sleeves, but I think that it will be a task for tomorrow, to be honest. It just looks like a lot of stitches to pick up. And I don't know if I can be bothered. If it was already like casted on my needles, I would be knitting more tonight, but because I have to pick these up, I don't know. I can't be bothered right now.